Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies, to the Parsha, the ladies, Parsha Shiur, Parsha's Vayakhel. Parsha's Vayakhel. Now, it's fascinating, really. This is actually a very unusual year because usually this Parsha, Vayakhel, and the next one, which is called Pekudei, are together. Invariably, they are together, except occasionally, even in a leap year, when we have more sedras too, yes, and you would think they were separate, quite often they are together. This year, for some reason that I'm not really clear about, it's separate. So but it's interesting. And for those of us who study Rashi with the portion every day, it's a little bit easier for us because to have two portions together is quite challenging to study. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but the word portion and Parsha is very similar. So the Torah Parsha portion, yes, you might have noticed that certain things have crept into English. We spoke about it before. For example, the Jubilee, yes, you've heard of the Jubilee here. So in Hebrew, what's the word? Yovel. A Yovel, so the Y is the J, yes, that becomes, so it's a Jubilee because that's the 50th year, right? It's the 50th year because that's when all the slaves would go free in the 50th year. Yes, it was another sabbatical year. So that became the Jubilee as the 50th year, right? And also, for example, what's Mammon? What's Mammon? It's another money, exactly. And Mammon is an English word for money. And of course, that's Mammon from the Hebrew word Mammon, which is money as well. Many, many words have actually entered the English language. But now we talk about Vayakhel, where Moshe Rabbeinu got all the Jewish people together. He got everybody together, and Rashi says, when did this happen? This Vayakhel, just a second, he says, Rashi says over here, the very first thing he says, that this was the day after Yom Kippur. Now, what do you mean the day after Yom Kippur? What was so special about Yom Kippur? Anybody who knows the very first Yom Kippur, when the Jews came out of Egypt, was something very, very special. Obviously, it was historical because Yom Kippur hadn't actually been commanded at a commandment, but something happened. What happened? No. It was almost the exact opposite. Well, it says Moshe came down from the mountain having secured forgiveness for the Jewish people after the golden calf. So he came down on Yom Kippur. Right, that's with the second luchot, the second tablets came down Yom Kippur. Because if you work it out, there were like 80. There were 3 times 40. Okay, 40 days. When he came down, he broke the luchos, was the 17th of Tammuz. Then he went up again on the 18th of Tammuz, stayed there for 40 days until Rosh Chodesh Elul, and then he went up for another 40 days and came down 40 days later, which was Yom Kippur. He actually came down on Yom Kippur with the luchos, and the Torah, and here Rashi says, it was the day after that. The day after that, he got everybody together. And he said, look, this is what Hashem wants us to do. Hashem has forgiven you. He's forgiven us for the golden calf. And what are we going to do about it? We're going to build the Mishkan. The Mishkan is the antidote, the tikkun, the rectification of the sin of the golden calf, where Hashem's Shekhinah, divine presence, will be there constantly. So people will feel an identity. They'll be able to relate to a physical place. It's not going to be just this godliness, which is sort of invisible and not ethereal. You can't relate to it. Here we have a place where people will focus their spiritual desires. People think idolatry, the golden calf. What kind of craziness is that? Well, why people worshipped idols in the old days? Well, truth is, first of all, we don't actually have a Yetzer Hara nowadays to worship idols.
Well, they were very influenced by the people that.
Yeah, but I'm asking in general, even non-Jews. Yeah, why do people worship idols?
Searching for spirituality.
That's a very good point. Absolutely, these people who worship idols, they were actually very spiritual people. They were looking for some way to connect to the forces of what they saw as natural forces and secure goodwill with them. They thought they were like independent, and they would somehow get blessed if they do whatever they basically made stuff up, basically how to, right? But they were basically spiritual people. And therefore, yearning for some form of spirituality, Hashem said, okay, we're going to have the temple, the Mishkan, the tabernacle will be the focus, and everybody's going to contribute. Everybody's going to give of all the materials that they have, and we're going to build this Mishkan, and then that will stop the rot, and that will, to a great degree, that will negate the idea of wanting something to represent, Hashem, so to speak, in this world. Of course, no idols, of course. So this was the day after. So this announcement, he got everybody together and did this and told everybody about the Mishkan. Now, interestingly enough, Rashi himself says earlier in Parsha's Yitro, yeah, he says that when Yitro came, if you cast your minds back, not too long ago, it was only a few weeks ago, that Moshe, Yitro, who came from Midian, he observed Moshe doing, what was he doing? He was judging people. He was judging them. And what was happening was, he was sitting down, and everybody was lining up to be judged on the arguments, disputes, cases they had. And Moshe Rabbeinu was deciding one way or the other. Now there, it says it was on the Macharat, Vayihiba Macharat, on the day after. So Rashi says, what was the day after? What do you mean the day after? So he says, that was the day after Yom Kippur. That Moshe was sitting and judging the people on the day after Yom Kippur. And yet here, we're saying, well, wait a minute, the day after Yom Kippur, he was telling them about the Mishkan. So what's going on here? Okay, so there's a couple of ways of trying to understand this. One is to say that, well, we don't necessarily hold like Rashi, and actually when he was judging the people, he was judging at a different time. It wasn't after Yom Kippur. It must have been, because he doesn't say what day. He doesn't say what day either. It's a tradition. It's a tradition, right? But Mocharas means the day after. It's just the day after something special, right? We don't know. Maybe it was another time. Maybe it was after the tabernacle had been inaugurated sometime in Nisan, before Pesach, maybe after Pesach, and then he was judging the people. Or perhaps you could say, as I've heard, and I've just seen recently, that he did both. At first, he came down. First, he got everybody together, and then he said, "Okay, we're going to build a Mishkan. Everybody, go and donate. Let's go and donate." And then later on, in the morning, he started to judge the people as well. Okay, so that's one way of resolving it, because it says he judged the people from the morning till the evening, not the whole day, right? So that's sort of like a bit of a problem. But if you say that he told everybody to start donating to the temple early morning, they start at 8 o'clock, let's say, then and then maybe 10, 11 o'clock, a few hours later, he said, okay, and everybody has, now I've all learned various laws about the how to deal with people stealing, disputes, right? All kinds of civil disagreements. Then I can start judging that as well. And he started doing that later on in the day. Okay. Now,
So wait, what time did he come down?
well, we don't know. He came down Yom Kippur. Oh, Boker Tov. Please. Well, we don't know what time he came. He came down Yom Kippur.
So what's the point of making that it was
The day after Yom Kippur.
no, that the time of the day that you mentioned?
Page 3 at 584. Sorry? What was the point?
Yeah, this.
No, because what I was saying, it seems to be a contradiction. On the one hand, it says, Rashi says, that he's, the day after Yom Kippur, he told everybody about building the Mishkan, donating to the Mishkan.
Right.
And that was what the focus seems to have been. Everybody was focused on that. They're all going to now, Hashem forgave them. Wow, yeah, let's build a Beis Hamikdash. let's donate this, donate that, the wool, the silver, the gold, the copper, all the different materials, the stones, right? All that stuff. Okay, well, that's what it looks like. But then how do you understand that it said early in Parshas Yitro that it says that Moshe, when Yitro saw him, he saw him judging the Jewish people on civil cases, nothing to do with the Beis Hamikdash, nothing to do with the Mishkan. He saw him on the day after Yom Kippur, and he was from morning to evening. Do you understand? So that was it sounds like a bit like a contradiction. So that's why I was just suggesting, or that some of the commentary suggests, that he started off in the morning, maybe. He started off talking about the Mishkan, getting people to donate, and then later on in the day, he was busy judging people on the disputes. Yeah, you understand? Okay.
Can I ask you, besides Yisro being Moshe's father-in-law, what was his position in the...
Well, he had no position.
No, right.
What, you mean amongst the Jews? Or is it?
And no, amongst anybody.
Well, he used to.
His claim to fame was that he was Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law.
No. His claim to fame. He was a famous priest.
Priest, right? Yeah.
He was a priest. He was not Cohen. He was a non-Jewish priest he was like the world expert. He was like the, dare I say, the Elon Musk of idol worship.
Oh, right.
Okay, he knew everything about idol worship.
Right.
He was the expert, right? He had gone into all different idols, and he'd analyzed every philosophy. So he was the world champ. Yeah, he was like, that's what I said to Elon Musk. People say, he knows a lot about science, space travel, electric cars and stuff like, what I'm saying? So he was an expert on idols. So they appointed him as big shot. But when he decided he's giving all that nonsense up and he's becoming he said he wants to be a monotheist. So they deposed him, like Elon Musk. They boycotted him. Yeah, they boycotted him. Said, "Right, you're Trafe now." Before when we thought you were left wing, we thought you're the best, you're the greatest. Now you become a fan of Trump, and now we hate you. It doesn't matter what you did, doesn't matter how clever you are, doesn't matter how much you're a genius you are in helping the climate, helping the world, going to Mars, building tunnels, building this, building robots. I mean, what I'm saying? We hate you just because of your politics. Right?
I saw a similar video about Trump himself, that he talks to the senators or something, and he said, I was in all of your houses, you always invited me, you always wanted my presence. And then I became right-wing.
And then you hate me.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when he came to the Jews and he came to convert, as we learned about Yisro, he came to join the Jewish people, but he had no position other than being the father of Moshe.
Right. Okay,
but of course, he was his unofficial advisor. It's very similar almost to like Havdil. I would say like Elon Musk became an advisor because he came to Moshe. He said, look, this is crazy. You can't judge everybody on your own. You're gonna get exhausted. They're gonna get exhausted. It's just not going to work. So he gave his advice. And Moshe took it. Well, obviously, Moshe discussed it with Hashem. It was a discussion. It wasn't just, because it was a bit of a dispute, because Moshe Rabbeinu, if you remember when we discussed Parsha Yisro, it was a bit of a dispute, a bit of a disagreement. And, but Hashem actually, funnily enough, Hashem came down on the side of Yisro.
Right.
More than on the side of Moshe. Okay, now, one thing that all the commentaries point out is that this parsha and the next parsha seems to be just one gigantic repetition of the portion of Truma, which is three or four before, and Tetzaveh. Now those Truma, the portion of Truma which comes directly after Mishpatim, after the giving of the Torah, is talking all about the vessels of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and then Tetzaveh is talking all about a lot of it talking about the clothing of the priests and the high god and the Kohen god, right? And in great detail, some would say excruciating detail, like really detailed. So those two parts are dealing with all that. Now this week and next week, it just goes over the whole thing again. And it says that, but it just says they did it. They did this, they did that, they made this, they made that, they made this. And it mentions everything all over again. And it just repeats it. And of course, the question you can ask is, well, why doesn't the Torah just say that the Jewish people did everything they were told to? And you got one posek. That's it. What do you have? You have two chapters, right? Two portions. One of them is 122 verses. And Pekudei is what? That's another 92. What's 92 and 122? Well, it's over 200, isn't it? About 214, something like that. So you got 214 verses where you could have put it in one or two verses. And we always have a principle that what? The Torah is very economical with the words. It doesn't add unless necessary. So this is a big question. Why do you repeat everything?
It does quite a lot of the time. Like a petition, like quite detailed petition.
Well,
So,
it quite a lot.
or somewhere else.
On the circumstance, well, we're going to get into that in a minute.
Or somewhere else.
Yes. Yes. That's the case with Eliezer and the marriage. Well, it's not so recently. The marriage in Parshas Chayei. Exactly, when Avram sent Eliezer to marry off Yitzhak and to go and find a bride. Who did he find? Rivka. And there's a whole story. How did he find? Because he waited outside where the well was. And he said he's going to make a test. That whoever comes out and feeds the camels, gives the camels to drink, he'll know. It's a whole story he writes there, right? How he managed to get Rivka as the wife, and it goes on and on quite a lot, right? And then after it happens, he is invited into the home of Lavan and Besuah. Oh, amazing, wonderful! You came for a shidduch, this, that, and the other, lovely. And they said, why don't you eat something? He says, no, I'm not going to eat something until I tell you what happened. And then he goes along, he tells again exactly what happened all over again. That's the case he's talking about. The whole story. Again, similar situation. And that's actually part of the answer. Rashi himself at that point, Rashi says, amazing, he says, how do you talk about it? The discussion, the schmoozing, the talking, the chatting of the servants, the slaves, of the Ovos, of the forefathers, is even more precious sometimes than the Torah of the Ovos. Because the Torah, in other words, the laws that we're learning out, we come sometimes with an extra word here, a missing word there, an extra lesson here, extra letter, or a letter not there. One letter, a yud, or a vav, or whatever it is, one letter's missing. We learn that, a new halach, we learn that from the missing letter, missing word. So if it's so economical when it comes to the law, but why then there is it so special? For some reason, there's a certain preciousness, even in Hashem, that when the world at large is, when something's very precious, see, this was like you feel the incredible excitement of Eliezer. Eliezer is telling over this story. He's so excited how it happened, how he was able to succeed, and he found Rivka. He found it was an amazing thing, right? And he was so excited. And he's telling over the story again. And Hashem, it's lovely. It's just like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So that's why it was repeated all over again. So here we could perhaps say the same thing, that the Mishkan to Hashem is so beautiful.
It's worth repeating.
So special. It's worth repeating all over again. That they did everything they were supposed to do and how they did it and what they did it, because Hashem was a very precious thing. This Mishkan. And that's why it's all repeated again. Even though we're not learning anything out on this. It's just a narrative. It's just a narrative of what happened. You're not really learning, you're really hardly learning anything new in these two parshas. It's just telling you what happened. And why? Because it was so precious. Precious things you like to talk about. You see somebody goes and tells somebody, but they went to a film or they saw a film. You start chatting. Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. This, that, the other, right? They start talking about it, and they can't stop. Oh, it was amazing. I went to a speech. I went to a concert. Right? You talk about things that you feel are really, and you keep going on. Yeah. You don't say, oh, it was all right. No, it was great. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
No.
It also
What?
gives credit to Bezalel, like recognizing his,
Yes, or that he is mentioned, but he's mentioned.
not so much the other people.
No, because he was the
but
guy in
he-
charge.
Yeah,
Of course, he was the guy in charge. But that was also mentioned before.
yeah, exactly.
But he's not mentioned like every other
No,
verse. You know what I'm saying?
no.
He's mentioned once.
No, but to
as
make it
being-
in here, this
Yeah.
whole thing is pretty.
Yeah, no, everything is repeated. I mean, everything is repeated. It's an amazing thing, right? Anyway, so that's just a little bit. Now, you also may have noticed in verse 2, it's interesting, he gets everybody together, and we know that he's going to talk about the Mishkan, right? So what's the first thing he says? 6 days shall you keep the Shabbos. Sheis yomim te'aseh melacha. Melacha. Don't. For 6 days you should work, on the 7th day you should rest. This is Shabbos. Whatever you don't do anything. Don't do any work. Don't light any fire. And then he starts going on about the Mishkan. Well, what's suddenly Shabbos? What's Shabbos got to do with
You can't.
with the price of cheese, as somebody once said?
No, because you're probably because as great as the Mishkan is,
Yes.
Shabbos takes precedence.
Very
Yeah.
good. That's right. That's a very simple. That's the basic shot. That people may think this Mishkan. Wow, Mishkan. Hashem's coming down into the Mishkan. Okay, forget about Shabbos. Let's just keep building that Mishkan, right? We want that Mishkan so that Hashem can dwell. I said, no. Just chill. Mishkan, very important. Very important to build the Mishkan. Very holy, very special. I love it. I'm talking all about it. We're talking all about it. But Shabbat is Shabbat. Don't mess around with Shabbat. Don't build the Mishkan on the Shabbat. Okay? You've got 6 days to do your work. By the way, some people say over here, because it says Sheshi Shomim Te'aseh Melacha, you shall do your work. It comes out that they say that it's almost like an obligation. You've got to work for 6 days. Just sort of, you should be working. I mean, it's not necessarily a halachic thing, but it's certainly a good idea. To be productive, exactly, to try and be productive. Because Shabbos Shabbaton, you should have a Shabbos. It's a very interesting thing. Why don't you just, if your importance is really all about Shabbos, so just say Shabbos, Bayom Hashvi Yelachem Shabbos, on the 7th day, you should have Shabbos. Why do you have to talk about the 6 days? Why do you have to talk about 6 days altogether? If we're talking about the idea that Shabbos supersedes the Mishkan, why mention 6 days you shall work? Just say, Bayom Hashvi Yelachem Shabbos. We all know what the 7th day is going to be. The 7th day is Shabbos. You still get the same message. Yes? You understand the question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Reb says a beautiful thing. It's fascinating. He says, we're talking about what Vayakhel means. He gathered everybody together. We're talking about Jewish unity. Person may think that Jewish unity is a very nice thing, beautiful, wonderful. But on Shabbos, when everybody's together, you're not working, you're in shul, you're chatting, schmoozing, unity. But during the week, unity. Panosa, I've got a rat race out there. There's a life, there's a world out there. People, it's dog eat dog. It's a business world. People are fighting, compete. Yeah, you have to talk about actors, unity. Forget it. It's a non-starter. Yeah? So Torah comes along and says, no. Sheshis, even the 6 days, you have to have the idea of Vayakhel. You have to have unity. Everybody should have unity. Yeah, you have to make a panosa. But you can also still do that within the context of unity. And harmony. Yeah, it's not about getting the other person and clobbering him and getting him down, right? It's very important to have harmony, not just during the 6 weeks, not just during the Shabbat, when you kind of normal sort of thing you would imagine would be Shabbat, but also the 6 days. Very important message. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, question. Indeed.
So do we, I may be wrong about this, but do we build the base of Mikdash, or does it just come to us? Because I know we build the Mishkan, but do we just get the base of Mikdash, or do we build it ourselves?
What you're thinking of
Yes.
is in your mind is there's two ideas here. The Mishkan was built by the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Okay, the Mishkan was built by the Jewish people, as we read. They built it with their own hands, okay, and with their own resources. The temple, same thing. The temple in Jerusalem was built 500 years later. Okay, 500 years after they came in. You understand? To the land of, I know people don't realize it was a long time after they came in. The temple was built around 850 or 830 BCE. Yes, but that was built by the Jewish people themselves as well, and also the second temple. There are commentaries that say that the third temple is going to come down from heaven. We're not going to necessarily build it. Now, there are interpretations of what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? So there are some that say, well, the inspiration will come from heaven, and it doesn't necessarily mean literally that a massive, great edifice is going to literally fall from the sky, plonk itself, smash on top of the mosque of Omar. Although some people I'm sure would be quite happy with that, they wouldn't mind. They'll just flatten it like a big foot, sort of Monty Python foot, comes down and smashes.
Roll up press videos.
Yes.
Yeah, condense it.
Yeah. Crash, smash, and juice all over the place. Well, if I may suggest, Mrs. Safran, thank you, welcome. The one thing that Rambam writes when he discusses about the laws of Mashiach, yes, he says that we shouldn't waste our time trying to figure out what will be when Mashiach comes, because nobody knows, not even the prophets know. Now, I don't want to cast any aspersions here, and I know you have great wisdom, etc., but we don't exactly know what's going to happen. So we don't know. Okay, whether it's a missile or whether it's self-evacuation, and nowadays you can move things, you can move buildings.
It's true.
You could just take it apart.
Yeah,
Just move it. What, they've been building on top for thousands of years? What do you mean? Okay. Oh, you mean when you smash it and put the rubble and use the rubble as a base? No, that's what I'm saying. Well, what do you mean on top? How'd you put what, in midair? What do you mean, on stilts? On stilts? No, I don't think so.
To be able to place it on Temple Mount.
No.
So
No. It's not about being Beit Knesset. No, that what is there has to go. No, that is no
space.
that's exactly. They built on that was our temple. It's not like they had a right to that. Of course it will. It always was. It always was. What they have now is just for Muslims.
will be allowed to come to Temple Mount.
Everybody. Of course, that it says V'naharoi Lav. I mean, it's one of all the nations of the world will come to Jerusalem, and they'll all offer up their sacrifices. Of course they will, but they can't do it at the moment, because at the moment it's just for one religion who has stolen our land and built on top of our temple.
There are many people who send Temple Mount. They're not allowed to sacrifice.
Well, let's not get into that. No. I don't want to get into that now. I'm talking about Mashiach. I'm not talking about right now.
One question.
Well,
613 mitzvahs to build the temple.
could you pass the water, please?
We are supposed to observe the 613 mitzvahs.
Yeah,
One of them is to build the temple. Why are we not building?
Can I interrupt? The building of Chesed, the more Chesed, Mashiach will come, and we have built it with us.
And we are in the process of building it spiritually.
Why not physically? Why not put a stone and another stone, and maybe Al-Aqsa will go away?
Maybe Al-Aqsa will go away. You have to have somebody to, and maybe not. How do you know? How do you know maybe Al-Aqsa will just go away? You need somebody of the level of Mashiach. Yes, Mashiach, who is a great Navi, and he's a great teacher and
There's
a
a
wise
good-
man.
there's a good-
He will be able to advise how to build the Beit HaMikdash. Now, it's true the second Beit HaMikdash was built at the instruction of and the advisement of, anybody know? Who?
Not all
No,
Hesed,
no. Herod did a revamp.
Herod.
He revamped the temple. He built it bigger. But Cyrus, very good, King Cyrus, Koresh, King Cyrus the Great, he told the Jews you can return to Israel and build the temple. He rebuilt the temple. He's a non-Jewish person who Hashem told me that it's okay that you guys can build a temple. Somewhere, you know what I mean? Now, he wasn't Jewish. He was the king of Persia. He was the king of Persia, yeah.
Read, the Megillah according to Malden. They read it as a story, and he says it was Esther's son.
Yes.
No, that was Darius.
Oh, you're right.
Darius
You're right.
the second was Esther's son. He was the one responsible for recontinuing, because Achashverosh stopped the building of the temple, right, on the advice of the Shomronim and the Kutiyim. Okay, he stopped it. But then Darius, who was Esther's son, correct? They continued it, and then it was eventually rebuilt. Yeah.
Does that make Darius a Jewish name? I like the name Darius.
Does it make it a Jewish name? It's interesting. Alexander became a Jewish name after Alexander the Great. What do you mean anything goes? You're not going to pull up, Yamod, Reb Harold, Ben Boris. I mean, what do you mean anything goes? Not in my show, mate. Well, Ilan, not Elon. Ilan, unless he was an Ashkenazi. Elon. No, Ilan. Elon, but not Elon.
Elon, the big computer man.
Yeah, well, we know. We mentioned him earlier in the Shiur. Anyway, look, we're straying a little bit off subject, just a little bit. Anyway, I hope that's the answer to your question. That in the future, Mashiach will come down. Where is it?
What actually is it? What they build it?
It's like a vast star.
What are they building? It's like a mobile temple.
Like
Mobile. It's like you see, that's what happens when you miss the Shiur. You don't come, you miss the Shiur. Here it is. It was a traveling temple. Look, this was the Mishkan. That's the Mishkan. It was like a mobile, small little. It was a mini temple.
You go inside it.
Yes, they go inside it, and you have, and you offer up sacrifices here. Here, that's the inside.
Oh, I see. It's not like I'm thinking of like an ark or a villa, but it's not. It's actually a whole temple.
Oh yes. Here, that's even better. Look, there you go. There you go. You see that picture?
Right. Okay.
You see, that was the Mishkan. That's the whole Mishkan on page 531. So you understand that was the actual tabernacle. It's like a mini temple.
Tabernacle. When I hear the word I think of like tablets of stone. But
Yeah, it's not. What exactly is the word tabernacle mean? I don't know. Sukkot they call tabernacles.
Very, very holy collapse.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that's blasphemous, but yes,
It was no. It wasn't. It wasn't just the tent because the walls were made of wooden beams covered in gold, right? So the wall.
Covered in gold.
Well, funny enough, it's interesting. We discussed that the other day. Why was it discussed? No, there's first of all, everything was in gold there. Or everything to do with Mishkan. If you look in Parsha's Truma, you'll see everything was gold.
It's heavy.
From the Oren to the menorah to the Shulchan to the Ketoris, the Mizbeach, everything's gold. All gold plated. Okay, so the beams were gold plated or gold painted. Right now, the other day we noticed we discussed. It seems that the Mishkan was actually it was destroyed at one point. It wasn't destroyed. It was before they built. They built a Mishkan in Shiloh. Shiloh was like the spiritual center of the Jewish people for about, would you believe, about 350 years, 360 years. Shiloh. Shiloh is, I think it's somewhere in Yehud and Shomron.
It's in Samaria, and
Yeah.
it's not far from where the Samaritans are.
Okay.
So I think it's just because of
Fine,
I
yeah.
didn't to Shiloh, but I've been to
Yes.
the valley.
So that
valley
now, when they built the Mishkan of Shiloh, they built it with solid walls, like bricks or some kind of solid wall, and then they put the curtains of the Mishkan that had been in the Mishkan. They put them on top, and so therefore it says that what happened was they buried the beams. The beams of the original Mishkan were buried. Now, I just recently read that it says that they were buried under the temple mount. I don't know if that is the affirmative, but it could be that, because we don't exactly know where they are. I thought maybe they were buried in the earth somewhere, because what I was saying was if they were buried in the earth, then the gold was a very important part. Why? Why would it be buried if they were buried in the ground, or actually buried? Actually, if they were buried anywhere, why?
The gold would retain.
Exactly. It was to be a great preserver, because gold doesn't decay. It only decays after like thousands of years. So like painting something is a big protection, because it says when Mashiach comes, when Mashiach comes, we're going to have we're going to find those beams. They're going to come back. So the Mishkan is going to come back.
So under Temple Mount, there's probably a lot of pleasure.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
There's also the Ten Commandments. There's also the Orah. Yes, the lost ark is under the Temple Mount.
£20,000, I think 150-ish. That's actually buried under the building in the UK.
What do you mean a penny?
So there was a specific year. This is Tom Scott video on it. That's quite.
Is this to do with the Mishkan, the temple?
It's a very expensive penny.
Or just a general
Yeah.
piece of information? Point of information.
It keeps you away, but on top of
Yes. Yes.
isn't wood like very soft? And that's
It is generally soft, but it's still metal. It's not that. If you want to beat it into something, it's easier because it's softer. But it's still very. It's a very good preservation sort of thing. Okay.
Why was it mobile, not permanent?
Well,
they were nomadic at that time.
So they can move along with it, like everything else.
It's like 7 that are known.
it was built. The Jews look. The Jews they needed. I mean, they needed that thing, and they were going to the land of Israel at that time. Remember, before they sinned with the spies, which came later, they thought they were going to go into Israel. Okay, so we got that Mishkan. We've got our Mishkan with us. Wherever we go, have Mishkan, we'll travel. You know? Well, a shul on steroids, because it wasn't a shul is a place of communal prayer.
Yeah.
But the Mishkan was more. It was the service, the avodah, the sacrifices, the incense, the avodah of the Kohen Gadol, of the priests.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I mean, it says that the synagogues are symbolic of like the Mishkan, if you like. But yeah, but that was the common focus. Yeah, but it wasn't a place of communal prayer as such. That was more in the Second Temple era. It became with the sacrifices. They would bring all the sacrifices together for Pesach. That was like once a year. Everybody came and brought the Korban Pesach. That was a big communal thing, but not on a regular daily basis. People were davening, especially in the Second Temple.
So the Second Temple was more communal.
Was more communal and more associated with prayer, because the Anshe Knesset Haggadah, the men of the Great Assembly, they were the ones who had instituted the idea of prayer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we get back to the Parsha now? Let's just see here. Yeah. I want to speak something especially about the ladies. Should I say something about the ladies? Look on page 586. Verse 25.
Were the ladies allowed in this?
Sorry?
Allowed to go in this? Was it only the men?
In the Mishkan, no. I don't think the ladies went to the Mishkan, but in the temple.
How did they pray?
I don't think the ladies went to the
First of all, you don't need to pray by the Mishkan. You can pray wherever you are. Right. Praying.
We're not bound by time or space.
So page,
You might want to.
I don't know. Page 5. Hi, sorry. Page 586, page 587, verse 25. It says, if you look what it says, V'chol isha chachmas lev biyoteho tovu, v'yoviu matvios atcheres v'zorakomah v'zostoras hashani v'esashesh. Oh, sorry, the next verse. Chol anoshim asher nos libon, all the ladies whose hearts inspired them. Tovu is so easy. They, how do you translate this? Spun the goat's hair.
Didn't they do it from the goat? Yeah.
Now, by the way, it wasn't just goats. It was also sheep. Okay, because that's where wool comes from. What if you know what it says that the ladies did? Fascinating thing. Now, for all the garments and for all the fabrics, you needed wool. But you needed yarn or woolen. What's it called? Yarn? Yarn or woolen thread? Yeah, whatever it's called.
So is it like making the
Oh, so how do you make it? You have to spin it.
Spin it into yarn.
You spin it into yarn, right? Now here we have spinning machines everywhere in spinning machines. In those days, they used to be by hand. They just do it in their hands. Don't ask me how they did it. It was done by hand. Presumably, if you go to China, you'll probably see how they did it. I don't because if they didn't have a spinning machine, I mean, the spinning wheel, the spinning machine that they do, it has been. I mean, it's relatively recent, isn't it? Relatively recent. Industrial Revolution. Yeah. So the women were spinning the wool and turning it into thread with different, right? You know what it says they did? They did that literally from off the backs of the wool, or off the backs of the sheep and the goats. They literally spun it while the sheep was still alive. They were spinning that wool somehow. Don't ask me how, because I don't know how. But it was a very, that's what it says. What it says, the chokhmah, look what it says. All the ladies that did that thing with chokhmah, wow, tovu as it is, they spun it with some kind of wisdom, some kind of chokhmah that people had no idea. This was an amazing thing. Now, the truth is, really, you don't need to do that. If you just shear you shear the sheep, right? And you got a bunch of wool. Okay, you got tons of wool. So then you'll spin it. You'll spin it. It's a lot easier. If you got a whole pile of wool, you spin it. Oh, ladies didn't do that. They wanted to do more. That's the big difference between the men and the ladies. The men, they did what they were told to do. You know, we'll give the gold, we'll give the silver, the copper, we'll give the stones, the this, the that, the other, the beams, the wood. We'll do whatever we have to do. Ladies, oh no, we're not going to just do what we have to do. We're going to go beyond. We're going to do more. We're going to go beyond the call of duty. And that's why the commentaries mentioned that when you spin wool in this way, the thread is a different character. It's a much greater quality. It's not just regular wool. Apparently, it has a much more cleaner and more special.
Yeah, because they wash it and
well, because it's coming off it's fresh in a way. Yeah. It's the freshest of the fresh. Once you've cut it off and sheared it off already, it's not so fresh, right? So this is just. I wanted to mention this because this is the ladies' Parsha. Okay, sorry.
They must be very tolerant.
Somebody said that to me the other day. But when you shear sheep, they don't run off. They just stay there.
Sitting there and it's tedious, and
you've got somebody holding them. You've probably got guys holding them.
They're like holding them down with one leg.
Yes, hold them. The sheep, they're kind of sheepish. They're like, all right, But the truth is, they kind of like being sheared. Actually, they like being sheared because it makes them feel cooler. You know what I'm saying?
I don't understand how that interpretation came.
No.
Sorry, I was going to say that because we've been shearing sheep for so long, we've now bred sheep that need to be sheared like regularly. Sometimes you'll find sheep in the wild that you can see it's far too heavy for them. Their skin is overstrained, it's all matted.
Yes.
And they need to be sheared.
Yes, and they want to be sheared. Exactly.
Like
right.
Like domestic dogs.
Right. Right. Now let's get back to the shear. Back to the Shiur. Rebecca, you missed the gym. I said back to the Shiur. Okay, you got to be aware to the jokes. Yeah.
How did you get? How does that interpretation from here?
What do you mean?
To that? I didn't
No,
know.
because there's b'chokhmah.
With wisdom.
With wisdom, they did this with an incredible wisdom. So, in other words, the women said, "Well, we want to be involved here, and we want to do something special." You know, there's a beautiful story. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Ladi, he's the founder of Chabad. Now, very often he would go on these trips to raise money for the Jewish people living in the Holy Land at that time. About 18th century, incredible poverty. There was nothing there. They had no kibbutzim. They had no. Right, they were living off swamps. Eretz Yisrael was not what it is today. It was really tough. And they had no way of making a parnasa. The Arabs, the Turks were ruling. So it was very hard. So he used to collect money, right? He went to some chassid and he asked for a certain amount of money. Now, whatever the amount was, it was probably quite a lot of money. And so the Rabbi said, okay, we're going to give you, in the morning, we're going to give you the coins. Okay? Now, it seems through the night time, the wife, they didn't have children. I believe they were childless. And I think what happened was that the wife, she polished the coins overnight. She polished them. Now, the coins in those days, Russia, sort of grotty stuff. A coin, you see the coppers, there's something pretty grotty. She polished them. She polished them for hours. Oh. So once she gave them to the rabbi in the morning, they shone. The coins shone. And when the rabbi got them, he was like thrilled. And he was like, wow. I mean, it's the same coin. You're not going to the bank and say, oh, I've got a shiny coin. We give him more money. No, sir, I'm sorry. That is what it's worth. But the fact that she polished them because she wanted the mitzvah of tzedakah, it's about the way you give. So she wanted to do it in such a way. And the Rebbe gave a bracha to them both to live long, healthy lives, something like that, or to have children. Definitely there was to have long life, I know, because the family is known. It's called the family Chen. Chen.
Oh, right.
In Chabad, the family Chen is quite a famous family. And his name is Chen. And Chen means, of course, graciousness, favor, right? So it was like this was an amazing. The Alter Rebbe was so excited to have these shiny coins. And why did she do it? Because she just wanted to do that mitzvah tzedakah in a very special way. So it's just sort of the same idea. It's not what you're doing; it's how you're doing it. Men are like, all right, okay, you want me to do this? I'll do that. Do this, do that. You're sort of just getting on with it, right? But women, they're much more. They're not just so interested in just doing what you have to do. And I think this is beautifully illustrated by this fantastic thing that the ladies did.
The Hebrew just says goats. Yeah. The Hebrew does not have the word hair.
No, but that's what it means.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to spin a goat into hair. I mean, it means that. It means the head. Everybody understood. There's nobody who says these things like this. But that, yeah.
So if somebody gives me a new coin, even though it's the same value as a normal, it does feel nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, live, fresh, freshly minted. Yeah, it's like if somebody has some, brewed beer, or freshly pressed hops or whatever.
I remember as a little kid when we get a penny, and it was a new penny. It was only a penny, but because it was new.
Shiny. People like shiny coins.
You could buy a gumball.
You like them, but they're not worth anymore. It's the same, but you like them.
But we used to put a penny for the gumball. But we went
to
the new penny in, we would get a
penny. Right. It's like the Rebbe dollars when the Rebbe got dollars, they were crisp and dollars.
It's always a shiny
Where?
in the upper
I
north.
don't know, in school they used to give you like a thing to push right?
Yeah.
Shiny penny.
Oh yeah.
Don't remember the shiny penny. I do remember this. Yeah.
Ladies, we're running short of time, so let me just leave you one more little thing over here. About the Nesiim, the priest, if you look on page 588, and 589, verse 27, it says the Nesiim, the leaders of the tribes, they brought the Avnei Sham, they brought there were stones, the stones that were needed on the top of the shoulders of the Kohen Gadol of his garments,
What
and
was it?
also the stones, precious
Right,
stones,
right, right.
and also the precious stones of the Choshen.
Right.
You know, the
Right.
breastplate. Okay, and it's interesting here. Why do they make a whole deal about it? It's interesting. The if you the Nasiim is spelt without a yud. It's interesting. It's spelt defectively. Yes, because Nasi would have a yud after the sin. Nasiim, right? And the thing is, there's an interesting question here. Is why what happened over here? If you look later on when they were actually bringing sacrifices after the Mishkan had been built, then the Nasiim came first. They did everything first, and here this is they did everything last. They came at the end. So Rashi goes on to explain, you know what happened? The Nasiim, they said, you know what, let everybody donate what needs to be donated, and we'll fill in the shortfall. We're the oligarchs, you know. We've got the big bucks, and if there's not enough, presumably there's not going to be enough, and we'll fill it in. Guess what happened?
They had enough. So
They had more than enough. More than enough was brought. So there was actually nothing left to really donate. The only thing that they could donate were these precious stones, which really there was enough money to pay for those as well. They could have bought them, you know, at, was it Samuel's? J.S. Samuel's? They could have got them at Samuel's. There's one near New Haven, no? Or near House Sinai. Yeah. Anyway, and so they were the ones who donated these things, and that's why the letter was. It says because there were a little bit of laziness crept in. But how can we say this? How can we say? Oh, we were discussing it yesterday.
Yeah.
How could you say these great people were lazy? So you probably
First.
yes.
Yes.
But what? So why did they make a mistake? Yes and no. You see, a leader, a good leader, what does he do? He doesn't just say, "Hey, I'm the leader, I'm the big boss." Yeah. No, a leader. Pardon?
Leads by example.
He leads by example, and he wants other people to be fulfilled in what they need to do. He wants them to be achieved. So what was the mission? The mission was to get as much stuff as possible. Great. I'm going to inspire everybody to bring so we can have lots and lots of stuff for the Mishkan. That would like their job, to inspire others to bring, right? The problem was that is a role of leadership. It's not a bad thing to inspire other people to give. It's a good thing. However, in this regard, it was a little bit out of place.
Let's lead by example.
Lead by example and lead by alacrity. You know what alacrity is?
No. Speed.
No one knows speed, alacrity. Yes, in other words, speed, enthusiasm. You do it quickly. Why? Because here we're talking about the Mishkan.
Yeah.
Do you remember we said how precious the Mishkan is?
Delay.
Yeah, don't delay. Yeah, you know, so they should have, that's the one place. Normally, what they do, that with their leadership was over, that's fine. The attitude is right. But when you're building a Mishkan, you've got to do it quickly, you've got to do it fast, you've got to show people that there's a speed here, that the leader's doing things in a quick and a swift way. So that's why later on, when it came to offering up the sacrifice, we ain't going to make the same mistake now. We're going to bring these sacrifices quick before anybody else does. Before we could, we learned our lesson. Yeah, taught them a lesson, which is good because, sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes leaders get it wrong, right? And that's why we don't need to learn it as an overt criticism of the Nasiim. All we have to say is that there was something they could improve on as well. Okay, so we have to sometimes balance. Leaders need to balance the idea of empowering their community and also showing their community that they also are enthusiastic about doing something as well. They're not just sort of telling others and empowering others. They have to show, as you say, leading by example and leading by alacrity. So I think at that point we are past time. I want to thank everybody for coming and for listening. And if there are any final questions before we finish off, or is everything quite clear? No? Sorry? Is there a reason not to? You look so hyper. Look at you. You come, we'll give you another cup of tea after.
Yeah, you're.
Whenever I get over and say, trying to get rid of expensive. Like the modern technology hasn't got that.
Well, you have to get the Uber at 20 to 11.
Well, we
No.
continue, I continue to down for climbing
Off harder to think.
Ben to Overlander.
Anyway,
I couldn't do the research.
all of the best. Thank you very much. Be well. Bye-bye.